today's podcast, June 14th. I'm Dean Arnold. I'm running for Congress. This is the Dean Arnold Podcast. Now, those of you who are faithfully following my live streams every day may notice that my shirt is the same color as yesterday, bright red. And that is because we are pre-recording this one because it's Sunday. Or why don't I just take Sunday off? Well, I'd like to, but I'd like this to be a perennial thing, so next year we can do the June 14th podcast again on June 14th. And it may not be Sunday, it may be Monday, and then I wouldn't have a podcast because I didn't do it because I took Sunday off. So here we are doing a podcast today, and today's topic is going to be, what is behind me? So you've been watching this podcast now for 2 or 3 weeks, and I've got all these crazy things behind me. This is my cigar lounge, my office, my studio, whatever you want to call it. It's quite actually a crazy thing, and at some point I'll do more podcasts about the rest of the cigar lounge studio. Shout out to Christina Bankston, a Facebook follower and friend who did a great photography session with me in here, so I'll have some photos to share. That'll be good. But that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm running for Congress. Vote for me on November 3rd. Give to my campaign, DeanArnoldForCongress.com. Questions and comments are welcome. Well, it's not a live stream, so you can still do questions and comments, but I'll get you after the fact. All right, so let's move into the scripture of the day. Let's see how I do when I try to bring it up. I seem to be getting better and better. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Once in a while, not very often, but you usually have one epistle and one gospel reading on the calendar every day, but once in a while you'll have a whole slew of them, and that's usually because it's associated with a fast day or a feast day. We got the Feast of the Apostles, focusing primarily on Peter and Paul, and there's a 2-week fast coming up to that feast, but I imagine that that's why we've got a number of scriptural passages, so we had a lot to choose from, but we are going to choose Wisdom of Solomon, verses 3, 1 through 9. Yes, let's talk about it. For you Protestants, Wisdom of Solomon is not in the Bible, but it was in the Bible with the rest of the Deuterocanonicals, sometimes referred to as Apocrypha, not the best word for it. But there's a bunch of books in between the Old and New Testament that were part of the Christian tradition for 1,500 years, and then suddenly the Protestants decided they didn't like them. So we're just not going to put them in there because we just feel like we can do that. Well, they can't do that. This is part of the Orthodox Church. Other traditional churches like Catholics and others will include these books, and maybe that's a whole separate podcast about why we do that. But, you know, the whole question of what books go in the Bible, I mean, that's kind of why I became Orthodox. I kept asking, okay, if everything's about sola scriptura, everything comes from the Bible, how do you decide what goes in the Bible? Martin Luther wanted to get rid of the book of James. They did get rid of all the Deuterocanonicals. Come on, you can't just do that. You can't. No. So when I figured out that they all ultimately will tell you, well, the 3rd or 4th century, the early church decided which books go in the Bible, in the canon. It's like, oh, okay. Well, sounds like they got some authority. Might be needing to listen to them on the other stuff. I digress. This book, The Wisdom of Solomon, has a very interesting passage. We'll read a good bit of it here. But the souls of the righteous are in the hand of God, and no torment will ever touch them. Which is interesting because yesterday we did Aquilina, who a lot of torture hit her, but maybe she was in bliss and the Holy Spirit protected her from whatever. I mean, so no torment will ever touch them. It's got to mean something. In the eyes of the foolish, they seem to have died, but their departure was thought to be affliction, and their going from us to be destruction, but they are at peace. For though in the sight of men they were punished, their hope was full of immortality. And having been disciplined a little, they will receive great good because God tested them and found them worthy of himself. You know, I mean, this is heavy stuff. I mean, yeah. I mean, if I saw someone, get dragged out of church and tortured and made fun of and desecrated and whatever, and then, shot in the head 4 times, I'd be like, ooh, kind of cursed. I got a bad hand. This isn't good. The Bible is saying these people are thought to be in affliction and in destruction, but they are at peace. Looks like they were punished, but their hope is full of immortality. Having been disciplined a little, they will receive great good because God tested them and found them worthy of himself. Verse 6, like gold in the furnace, he tried them, and like a sacrificial burnt offering, he accepted them. Gosh, Lord willing, we'll be able to shine like Aquilina, we read about yesterday. In the time of their visitation, they will shine forth and will run like sparks through stubble. I've always found that to be an interesting passage. Then these last 2 verses, separate topic in a sense, but I want to read it. They will govern nations and rule over peoples, and the Lord will reign over them forever. Those who trust in him will understand truth, and the faithful will abide in him in love, because grace and mercy are upon his elect, and he watches over his holy ones. So these people who go through all this, they're going to rule over peoples, and they're going to govern nations. Purpose of history? Making disciples of all the nations. We've talked about that a lot. Purpose of getting tortured and martyred and persevering through that? You'll be the ones being used by Christ to govern the nations and rule over peoples. Wow. We read 2 or 3 days ago in Hebrews, people did that because they hoped for a better resurrection. Well, what does that mean? Well, right here, you'll get to you'll be the one governing the nations and ruling over peoples. Heavy stuff. Not something we think about much anymore, is it? We don't think that way. Just do whatever you want. Nothing matters because it's all grace, grace, grace. And you can just sin, sin, sin. No, not quite. All right. Saint of the day, Prophet Elijah. Various saints of today, but I chose Elisha. I think I said Elijah. Elisha. Don't want to spend too much time on it, but there's a part they mention here in this life of Elisha that I just found to be interesting. Another Orthodox note here. So in 1 Kings, it's really 2 Kings 13, 20, and 21, a year after his death, a corpse was thrown into Elisha's grave, and as soon as the dead man touched Elisha's bones, he came to life and stood up. That's in the Bible. Not the Apocrypha, not the Deuterocanonicals. The Bible. 2 Kings 13, 20 through 21. Some guys, I think it was some robbers, they had killed a guy, and some other people started to come through, and they're like, oh, we gotta get rid of this guy. So they threw him into this cave where Elisha's bones were. And when this dead man touched Elisha's bones, he came back to life. That is a story of relics doing miracles. So, Orthodox people keep the bones of various saints, thinking they may have miraculous healing properties, just like the saints themselves did when they lived. And this is one of the proof texts, if you will, that kind of thing does happen and can happen. And so now you know. Now, let's scroll down a little bit farther, because apparently Julian the Apostate, that horrible, horrible emperor from 361 to 363, who aligned with the Jews to destroy the Christian church, he gave orders to burn the relics of the prophet Elisha. So he must have read that passage in 2 Kings, and he didn't want no Elisha bones around. So he gave orders for the prophet Elijah, Obadiah, and John the Forerunner, all their relics to be destroyed, to burn them. But the believers made sure that didn't happen, and they were transferred to Alexandria. So thank God for that. But interesting stuff. The bones, the relics. Do a podcast on that? Maybe so. I I don't feel like I'm a relics expert, but that's okay. What is behind me? Let's start to my left here. There is I get backwards. Okay, there you go. There is a cross right behind me. There, I'm pointing at it. That's a cross. That's a, I don't know, ink thing. I don't know that, but that is a Christian cross. I wanted to have some kind of cross behind me, so I put that in the foreground. That was done by my niece Jackie. I have three older brothers. One of them named Arnie has four kids, and the oldest one is named Jackie, and she is a tour de force, a very unusual person, extremely talented, an artist, and an intellectual, and is Orthodox. Her husband is about to become a priest in the Orthodox Church, Caleb, and Jackie paints icons. She's I think they say write icons, but she's a very talented iconographer. But she made for me this print of a cross, and I love it, and I'm proud to have it. And so I made sure it was in the foreground for this podcast that I do. Let me get rid of that logo. Just above that little yellow thing, you can't really tell. I'm going to have to do this pointing. Yeah, it's pretty challenged here. Right there. That's a book that I wrote. I've written 5 or 6 books for the public, and this one's called The Cherokee Princes. It used to go under other names, but I have that on display in my cigar lounge. And right next to it is that kind of yellow and red thing you see. That's a Ethiopian icon. And actually, a book I wrote about Ethiopia is kind of behind that, right about there, but you can't tell it from here. But you can Google Dean Arnold or go to Amazon and do Dean Arnold. You're going to see my book on Ethiopia, which is a wonderful, wonderful book. I suggest you read it. Get the audio book. Both those books have audiobook options. But that's that's a Ethiopian icon, and it's pretty cool. But I have a kind of an Ethiopia section in my. Just above that, we got to do. Here we go, right there. That little thing in the corner. That's just the corner of a like 40-foot timeline of world history that I have in this cigar lounge, and it kind of makes the cigar lounge in a way. Starts with Adam and Eve, Cain and Abel, and goes all the way to the 1900s. It's an old timeline. It probably was made 100 years ago, and you'd have in order to start with Adam and Eve, Cain and Abel, you'd have to be 100 years ago because they still believed in that kind of thing. But it's a wonderful thing. All right, moving on. This picture right here, with a boat in the foreground and the Walnut Street Bridge behind it. It's a picture that part of it vaguely appears in my book on Chattanooga called Old Money New South. And where the bridge goes, it's kind of goes near the museum, Hunter Museum. There used to be a building there, dentist's office and a doctor's office, and there was a kind of a attic 3rd floor that I worked in when I worked for the Chattanooga Resource Foundation. Did some pretty amazing stuff there. But anyway, for all those kind of reasons, I've always loved this picture. And it was taken by a photographer named Doug Barnett. I think Doug has passed on. He lived on the kind of foot of Lookout Mountain or something like that. He was a nut. He was kind of cranky and a little bit bitter, and was always in litigation and whatever. But he was passionate for his work, and he was so good. And I feel like you could define or describe a large part of my life with books and movies and things that I've done is that I'm always kind of having to pamper really creatives, really weird and finicky, difficult creatives. Well, Doug Barnett was one of those, but he was good. And I had to get that photo from him, and in order to be able to use it, like I'm using it there on my wall, and I've used it in my book, and I've used it in places. Oh, I had to negotiate and talk and give him money, and it was just so very difficult. But he was worth it. You got to do what you got to do. All right, that's that picture. Now I got to move my head here because right below that picture you see what looks like a head. Maybe you can see it better than I can see it right now. I think. Well, I'm not going to worry about it. That's Hillary Clinton. It's her big head on a book of mine called Hillary Invents. It's probably my most popular book on Amazon. It's got like 60 reviews. People love it. Basically, her best friend and lover was an attorney for the Clintons. He was found dead outside the White House, 1993. There was lots of investigations that led to the Starr report. Ken Starr was really hired to try to get to the bottom of the Vince Foster investigation. He couldn't, or he covered it up. I can't get into all the details now. It's another podcast, but he covered it up. And so to have something to work with, they came up with the Monica Lewinsky sex scandal. Anyway, that book, that's a heck of a book, and I suggest you read it. Haven't turned that into audio yet, but it's on my list. And the sign next to it says President Bill Clinton exhibit, and it's a arrow pointing towards my Hillary book. I found that at some estate sale. I don't know why I found it in an estate sale, but I did, and I just thought, man, that is perfect for what I need. So that's what's going on there. All right, let's go to the right. I'm going to have to relight. These cigars should be doing better. To the right. Right there. That is my grandfather's cabin. I think we talked about that when I did a podcast on my grandfather, Howard Waite. But he lived on the top of Vision Mountain, which is in Inverness, right next to Point Reyes, half an hour north of San Francisco in California. He bought 7 acres there in the 1950s for like $6,000, and it ended up being worth like $5 million. But he built this cabin, which is a really cool cabin. It was award-winning and in different books and that kind of thing. And he made it out of all the trees right nearby. And to get that staircase that's kind of bending, he had to have like a bent tree. And I grew up going and visit that place a lot, and I'm very proud of it. So I'm glad to have it on my wall. To the right of that is a zebra skin. That kind of makes the cigar lounge, this big, huge zebra skin. It makes everything feel kind of Hemingway-ish. So I like that. And I mentioned in my podcast about Joni, maybe I did, maybe I didn't. I think I did. That I got that from my Aunt Joni, who was an amazing artist in Nairobi, Kenya. A wild woman. She did marry, but she was mostly single all her life. And she, before she got busted with marijuana and renounced her U.S. citizenship, she was able to come into the United States in the 1960s and 70s and bring things like zebra skins. And she left them with my grandparents. Left that with my grandparents. It went from basement to basement to basement. Got to my basement for about 10 years, and then about 5 years ago, when I put together this cigar lounge, I had me a zebra skin, and I love it. All right, just below the zebra skin to the right of it, I think. There we go. You can't really see what that is, but that's something I'm also very proud of. If you were here in the lounge, you could see it. But my daughter Tabitha is quite a celebrated artist. She does weavings and makes rugs, and one of them was held up the other day by the president of Cuba, who liked what she was doing. And she travels and speaks, and it's pretty amazing. Anyway, when she was like 19, she's 30 now. When she was like 19, me and her and my son and my mother all went to Nairobi, Kenya to see Joni, see the wild animals. I went to Ethiopia after that. But anyway, we were tooling around, hanging around, and there were a lot of animals and zebras and elephants and giraffes. Well, when we get home, Tabitha just hands me nonchalantly this kind of small sketchbook where she had done watercolors of all these animals and all of these different things. She said, you might like this. You might want this. Well, I'm looking through it. The depictions are phenomenal. You have to see it. I can't show it to you, but if you could do a close up. I'm not going to try to do a close up because I'm going to screw everything up. But if you could see a close up, you'd like, oh wow, that's pretty good. I mean, it's not like, oh, she's 19, so that's good. No, it's like, that's really good. And Joni made her famous career as an artist doing abstract wildlife. So Tabitha comes by it honestly. So that's what's there. And then we're about to wrap up this little What's Behind Me session. Bottom right, I think it's bottom right. That sign right there says, thank you for smoking. Well, thank you for smoking. And I'm smoking. And I have people in here all the time, and I thank them for smoking. And I love cigars. So I'm glad to have that sign. Can I talk about the origin of that sign? If my friends Mike Hunter and Phil Wyndham are watching this, they will know that I probably don't want to get into too much detail about where I got that sign, but I'm glad to have it. Davidoff Lounge, I think it says at the bottom of it. It's been a lot of years hanging out in the Davidoff Lounge. It made an impact in my life, and I got cigar bros watching this podcast. Who can I name? Ivy Whitman, Dan Coombs, a couple more that maybe, I don't know, coming up dry. But we all hung out in the Davidoff Lounge, and things were done, ideas were created, programs were implemented, and it was all good. Okay. So, I'm Dean Arnold. I'm running for Congress. Vote for me and give. Go to DeanArnoldForCongress.com and give to my campaign. I'm bringing sanity to an insane world. And please message me, contact me, make comments, and stick with me. We're getting there. We got a while to go before November 3rd, but we will get there. And we'll have a good time. Now we need to bring on some music.